right, guys, welcome to episode 11 of It's Personal and Entrepreneurs podcast.
Hey.
We have a very special guest with us today. It's Arlen. Arlen is the COO of Destin Dreamers, and we're very thankful to have you here with us today. We actually were introduced to Arlen through Chris Cumby, our business coach, not that long ago, and have since kind of been at a couple different events together and spent some time together. And he graciously offered to kind of come on after we had a great conversation about your business and just your life ending up here and whatnot. So we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I guess I like to always start with this because it's personal, the name of our podcast. I like to get a little bit of like a personal background for our listeners of both kind of like growing up, some memories you can look back on even and say like, this was kind of my segue into being like a business person or an entrepreneur of sorts. What you've done professionally, and how you ended up where you are now and what you're doing now.
Great questions. I see that if you look at your life as a wheel, the hub, the center is my philosophy, which is build relationships and deliver value.
Yep.
And then I do that through so many different ways. So right now, COO for Destin Dreamers, we manage luxury vacation properties in Destin, Miramar Beach, and the 30A. And then I do business development for a couple other companies that Chris Harper, the owner, has. We launched Causeway Coffee over in Miramar Beach, first-class coffee shop. Launched Elevated Laundry services to do our laundry and also laundry for the vacation rentals.
That's super smart.
And our philosophy and Chris's philosophy is, look, if there's a problem, solve it.
Yeah, provide the fix.
Yeah, business is actually just solving problems, and you get to make some money off of it so that you can provide for your families and go solve more problems.
Yeah.
But the background is, so I grew up in Kansas on a farm, and
Really?
this was a legit farm, meaning
Like a working farm.
working farm. It's my dad's sole source of income. Get up, you have breakfast at 7, go outside.
What kind of farm was it?
Hogs, cattle, crops. So
A little bit of all of it.
from 8 to 10, my chore was to go out and milk the family cow every
Wow.
morning, rain or shine, cold or hot,
Had to be done.
had to be done. And that's kind of helped me in business, where you got this idea in farming, you feed the animals. You feed the animals every day, and then in 6 months, that
The animal
hog
feeds you.
has grown. Yeah, good way to put it. That hog's grown from 10 pounds to 250 pounds, and you sell it. Mm-hmm. So in business, what are those feed the animal activities you do every
Interesting
week?
analogy, yeah.
Every day, and you do it and consistently, the results come.
True, yeah. Yeah, it kind of like teaches you patience a little bit, I guess, too.
Yeah, and if you're doing those daily activities, time is your friend.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not doing those daily activities,
It's
or you're
your enemy.
doing bad habits, it's your enemy.
Yeah.
And the second thing from farming I learned too is life is full of seasons. My uncle was a very successful farmer, and I'll never forget the moment we're sitting in the living room, and he says, farming is very simple. You do the right things at the right times. Mm-hmm. First week in April, you plant the corn. You harvest later in the fall. And just realizing in business, what are those vitally few things you do?
Yeah.
And then do them.
And that probably translates a lot to vacation rentals, too. I mean, knowing the seasons of the vacation rentals and doing the things that are needed in the business at the times where they're needed, downtime, busy time, it's all the same thing.
Yeah, and you see this in your business is you're planting and you're harvesting. Mm-hmm. So in farming, you're planting and then you're cultivating, you're spraying, you're fertilizing, and then you're harvesting. And in business, we have to be harvesting what we planted, with real estate from leads a while back.
That's sales.
And planting for the next.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's that keeping that consistent wheel of planting and harvesting so it doesn't have cessation, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, facts. That's an interesting analogy. I like that.
It's the work. I got work ethic from my parents, instilled faith too. We were very active in church, active in our community. And growing up where there wasn't a lot of money, since we were a smaller farm, learned that you just had to be creative to make things happen.
Yeah.
And you just had to work it. Now, what I've had to transition to is working extra is not always a good method in business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe it's best to pick up the phone, you pay someone else $150 to do it, but then you take your time to go spend producing activities that'll make you 300.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, learning that self-performing, it's a balance of knowing what to self-perform and what not to. And it's a hard thing to learn, but yeah, and having the balance between those things is super important. Yeah, it's like we were just talking about on our last episode with David even. It's like, stepping over pennies, to save some time. When
Stepping
really,
over dollars to
Yeah,
save
save
some
pennies,
pennies,
when really all you were losing is time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You thought that, if I provide this part, you can do it a little cheaper for me, and then it's better for everyone. But in reality, just let that person do the thing.
Yeah.
And then you go focus on what the next.
What
thing
you're
is.
good at. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's hard to...
It's hard to do
yeah.
because, especially in entrepreneurship, you want to think that those are the important steps.
You want to
need
control things.
I need to save this money because of X, Y, Z. But in reality, just spend that little bit of money and go find something else that's going to drive revenue back into the business. Or bring another client back to the door, or whatever it is that gets you to the next level, to where you don't think that $200 was that big of a deal.
Yeah. 100%.
And part of that is, a little phrase is you identify and do the vital few.
Yeah.
And you can look at that with, like, if you go to Whole Foods and there's these, containers of nuts or candy, and you put your container under there, you pull a lever, and it releases all that. What are the levers, those few vital activities to do? Because we're all going to drop stuff.
Yeah.
But are we dropping the vital few?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Make sure that happens. That's back to the planting, the sowing, and
Yeah.
all
That makes sense.
And then at age 18, the next step in life was college. Problem is, college takes money.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about, how can I earn money for college? And I heard about this guy in Michigan that had made money selling rocks.
How did you hear about that? Do you remember?
I had a friend from Michigan I was
Okay.
talking to, and he just mentioned that.
Yeah.
Selling rocks.
Selling rocks. So I grabbed my leather gloves and my dad's 1976 yellow Jeep pickup, drove out to my dad's farm fields, and I started filling that pickup full of rocks, anywhere from like 5 pounds to 10 pounds to 20 pounds, landscape rocks. Showed up
And
at
they
the
were just out there in the field.
Oh, yeah. A lot of rocks out in Kansas.
Yeah.
And because we'd have to clear them from the fields.
In order to
plant.
plant.
Exactly. And so they're just laying
So
beside
you
the
just
road.
pile up a pile somewhere, and
Yeah, they're sitting there. So I showed up at the farmer's market. And farmer's market, they're selling venison, they're selling tomatoes, cinnamon rolls, and here I am with
selling
rocks.
rocks. Yeah.
So this is what I learned with business is you don't always know if an idea is good or not. You just have to try it.
Yeah.
See what the market says. So I loaded rocks, and I had no idea what the price. And I put like $3 on, $4 on, $5 on, $10 on. And I waited. I sat back and waited for people to stop and buy. And people did stop and laugh. You're selling rocks? Who sells rocks?
Yeah.
And I learned very quick, if you try and do something in life, you're going to have people that immediately laugh at what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Haters.
Yeah.
But I did end up making $40 that first day. So I went home with a
40
smile on
bucks
my
off
face.
a-
$40
yeah.
selling rocks. So I came back for
What
3
year was that in?
This was 1999.
Okay.
And speaking of that, humor's good, so I had little signs there that said Y2K compliant rocks.
Okay. That's funny. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's good. That's funny.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
So after 4 weeks, I figured it's time to count my profits, because I kept track of expenses and such. I'm counting 100, 200, 300 pennies. $3 for 4 weeks of hard work.
A profit.
Profit, yeah. Would you have wanted to quit?
Yeah, probably.
Probably.
I thought about it, but instead I decided to listen to my customers. And my customers were saying, we want big rocks, 100-pound, 200, 300, 400-pound rocks. So I bought a dolly off Harbor Freight. I bought a trailer to pull behind the pickup. And I brought in the next week some of these big rocks. And people got excited. Now they wanted me to deliver them, so I offered free delivery. So after...
Tack that into your sales price.
That's right.
Yeah.
Learned that too. So after farmer's market was over in the afternoon, I'd drive around with my map. This was before I didn't have GPS.
MapQuest.
Didn't even have MapQuest,
Yeah, I
just
guess
the
they-
whole
yeah.
printed map.
Yeah.
And deliver it them. And I had this little old piece of carpet. I yanked the rock out, let it fall on the carpet, so one
Crack it or
put a
chip
hole
it or, yeah.
in the lawn, and then put on my dolly and just wheel these 200-pound rocks around. And I did that for 2 years.
What were they using the rocks for?
So anything from like rock gardens to lawn protectors.
And they just looked nice and decorative.
And they were holy rocks.
Yeah.
Had holes in them. Unique character.
Yeah.
Antiques too. They fit that.
Yep.
And it's like one morning a guy walked up at 11:30 and he was mad. I mean, I could tell he was ticked off.
Yeah.
And he'd been a customer of mine. And he said, how much for the rest of the rocks that were in my pickup? And I shot him a price. And he said, come over to my house. And what had happened the night before is someone had cut across his lawn, left these big ruts. So we lined the edge of his driveway and that corner with these rocks. So the next time someone tried it, they'd lose an oil pan.
You were just in the right place at the right time solving a problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I updated my marketing to say lawn protectors.
Which is smart because there's literally the house that I turn every
I know
single
exactly
time I
where
leave
you're talking
my house.
about.
He's got that. He's got 6 rocks that run that
Because
turn
it's where
perimeter.
cars run
Because
by.
people cut it short. People cut it short. They make that turn early and cut the turn short.
Yeah.
And his edge of his grass. So there you go. You found that problem.
So you literally started out by slinging rock.
Yeah. I did that for 2 years. I made enough money to pay for my first car, 2 years of college, and 13 visits to the chiropractor.
Wow.
But more importantly,
Legal rocks too.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
very true. But more importantly, I learned, it comes down to you build relationships and deliver value.
Yeah.
And right when I was thinking about quitting, it was part of that whole thing was not just listening to the customers, but I would check out dozens of books from the library on sales, people skills, conversation skills. And I learned you just have conversations, show interest, listen, provide
Shut up
good
and
product.
listen sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that was all part of that deal. And as I look back in business, it's as you're like, I'm involved in real estate, involved in, vacation rentals. It's build relationships, deliver value.
All sales, no matter like what level they're at, come back to that like the base layer, that same principle, be interested, not interesting. And the more interested you are in people, the longer the conversation will go on, and the more they'll leave the conversation being, hey, I like that guy.
Yeah. Allow them to answer whether you're interesting or not, and just be interested in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then they can make the judgment.
True. And what I heard a great variation of that too is ask questions, find connections, and go in those directions.
Absolutely.
And if we can see something we're both interested in, we can have a great conversation because you and I, we can talk to anyone and just show interest. But if they're
It has to be
interested
genuine.
in turtles and I'm not interested in turtles.
It's hard to talk.
Yeah. Granted, that is our logo. So
I
am
was
interested in
literally
turtles.
just looking at that turtle.
Chris, if you're listening, I do like turtles.
I love the emblem.
Yeah, that's great. From there then went off to college, came back, worked on a farm, and I actually pastored a church for 15 years back in Kansas.
Really?
It was a mega church.
Okay.
Because there was 200 people in the town, and 60 people went to church. So is that
was a mega
church?
church to that population? That was a mega
just
church.
being facetious,
It's
but yeah.
You got
over 50% of the population.
You got market share.
So it's a great experience. I was also on the volunteer EMS, volunteer fire department, and then I, since I was supporting my wife and 4 kids, also taught in the community college, taught public speaking, death and dying, ethics, and a couple other classes, and did that. And being on the fire department EMS, you just saw another side to people, and
Those all sound very value based. You just named 3 careers. That
We were just talking about this yesterday.
We just had this conversation. You just named 3 career paths that I personally believe are highly disrespected in society in terms of financial.
And you have to do it because of your own
And you just
internal
said
values.
that a younger version of yourself, learning where you want to go. Those were the 3 things that you were, and in a church. You were in a church, being EMT firefighter, teaching.
You have to know how to provide value if you're doing that.
That says a lot about what you want to do for the person in front of you versus what you're trying to do with the person in front of you for yourself. So
Good insight.
I take a lot from that, actually. You just saying that, because I think all 4 of those are my brother's in ministry up in West Tennessee.
Okay.
And he has a true passion for it. but I've watched him
It's a struggle
have some
sometimes.
true struggles in his personal life because of what that supplies for him and his family, and what it doesn't supply for him and his family. But he still wakes up every morning passionate about it. So that's really cool.
And being in those environments, and this is true with any job, is you have to make sure you're feeding yourself.
Yeah.
And because it takes a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
You have to take care of yourself before you can give away too.
To think about an EMT getting paid $20 an hour and being the person that comes and potentially scrapes brains off of the street side,
It's
is
crazy.
what does that person truly feel while they do that job? Because it's obviously not the financial benefit.
Yeah. And going home and you can't leave stuff like that
You
at
can't
home.
leave that behind at 5 o'clock when you clock out.
Yeah. And I think,
Ever.
and I was also chaplain for a department too at the time. And so it was kind of interesting. Like this out, since it was a volunteer situation where I was on call 24 hours a day if I was in the area. So like one night I opened gifts with my family. About 30 minutes later, the call came in that someone had stopped breathing. So I show up with a couple other guys too. And so I'm doing CPR on this individual who's 60s and ends up not making it. I now switch into my chaplain role and hang out with the now widow while the detective comes out, and then the hearse comes out to pick it up. And it was just an interesting, you just have to switch
Being
those
able to
different roles.
flex. Yeah, in a very intense situation.
And that's why when the team asked me why I'm so chill in the vacation rental world is I'm not doing CPR on a kid.
Nothing's an emergency.
I'm not dealing
Really.
with a heart attack. It's if you put it all in perspective. I mean, I get that your AC is out and
that's
that's
a big
swelling
deal,
it,
yeah.
and so I'm going to show sympathy. But from a personal level, it's all about perspective.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Yeah.
absolutely.
You can always tell, like, there's a big difference. Even a lot of people in the military, if they've been around chaos and disorder, you can be calm in more basic civilian life situations. Yeah.
And then process it later.
Yeah.
Because you do need to process it. You go into that mode of
Yeah.
get the job done, then you process
Find the
it.
solution, make the change, do what needs to be done, and then let me reflect on when this happens again in the future, what to do, how to feel.
Yeah, people who say they have no regrets, I mean, look, you always can look back on any deal and go, okay, I could have done something different.
Sure.
100%.
We shouldn't be going through like kicking ourselves in the past. I mean, you look at in the Bible where Paul, the guy that probably had more regrets than anyone because he threw Christians in jail and had them killed before he became one of the greatest missionaries.
Yeah.
He said, forgetting what lies behind and pressing on. What's in the past,
Can't change
deal
it.
with. You just accept it, learn from it, change it.
Gain
make
wisdom
amends.
from it.
Yeah,
Don't
but
ignore
don't dwell
it.
on it.
Yeah, don't ignore it, but don't let it hold you from continuing forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't run a race looking back.
No.
No.
You'll never win.
True.
The windshield's bigger than the rear view mirror. There's another corny one for you.
But once in a while, check that rearview mirror.
Yeah.
Probably valuable that it's there.
Yeah, right.
That's true. So yeah, I've been out here since 2019. Came out here with the family, and
What was the catalyst to moving to Florida?
so when a person's in a job and a career, you're kind of always sensing, all right, when should the season come to an end? Because life is full of seasons. Back to farming, it's when is that season over? And things are going well at the church, and just realized, this season, this is coming to an end. We gave the church a 4-month notice and left on a good note. Since the house was provided for us, we'd always wanted to come to Florida and spend some time in the winter. So we booked up a 6-week Airbnb starting January 1 of 2019
Okay.
here in Panama City, or over there in Panama City Beach. And I was teaching online. We had our Dave Ramsey emergency fund. I put some feelers out, a couple different jobs, and I'm a networker.
Yeah.
And so we threw everything in storage, and we just came out here, and a week into this, met a defense contractor, got a job working basically remote, writing proposals for the government. So we got and do different projects. And I guess my biggest name to fame over those 8 months was I wrote a contract for a NASA project. And then I was the underwater photographer while NASA sent something up and it came back down and our
Really?
team recovered it. And I was scared of water at that time. Still not a real big fan of water. if I can't touch the side or the ground.
Yeah.
But I overcame that to become an advanced diver so I could become an underwater
pretty cool.
photographer on that.
That one in I could not have guessed that. That's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's cool. It's just being on the front row as this thing goes up and comes back down.
Huh.
That's really cool.
And then, so that was from 2019. We went back to Kansas. I was working remote and then doing some traveling for the defense contractor. And August of 2019, after 8 months after leaving the church, got a offer to come out and work as office manager out here for the company. So moved the entire family across, didn't know anyone except my boss, to Destin. And, as we're thinking, praying through, should we come out? A couple things came to mind. One is, if I didn't take this opportunity to come out to Florida, I would always go through life going, man, what if?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then second, there's that verse, God works all things together for good.
Yeah.
To them who love him are called according to his purpose. What we forget is that next verse, which says that we may be conformed or become like Christ. So no matter what happens, the promise is, if you love God, he will make you become more like Christ, more mature. Mm-hmm. And realizing if we came out here and it, quote, failed, it's still good, we'll be more mature.
Yeah.
We can always go back to Kansas.
We
My
can do
dad has
something.
6 rental houses. We got both grandparents there. They'll let us live in the basement if
Can
needed.
pivot if you need to.
Yeah. So came out here August 2019, 3 months in, got laid off, and through a random conversation at a coffee shop, who is a friend of Chris Harper, I joined Destin Dreamers as the first employee, and we took that company from where it's at to where it's today.
Excuse me if I'm wrong. The end of 2019, or we're not in COVID. COVID's the beginning of 2020.
I went full-time just right before COVID hit.
COVID's the beginning of 2020, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought.
Oh, yeah. So that was just
you
going
hadn't even
through
seen that yet.
canceling all the reservations. I was involved in that. It's really...
But then it took off, right? I mean, when the world shut down and the Panhandle stayed open, I mean, did Destin Dreamers ramp up from that? I mean,
It did. We were just, man, when those beaches opened up, people started flying down here.
It almost was kind of like a circumstantial opportunity to a degree, I guess. Once it kind of came around that corner and people were trying to get away from everything else to
Yeah.
come down here.
you couldn't go on cruises, you couldn't get on airplanes, you couldn't go anywhere. So if you were within driving distance of the Panhandle of Florida, that was where you were going.
Yeah.
There was condos open, there was hotels to
This was
rent,
it.
Restaurants were letting you eat inside. I mean, when you're coming from some of these other places, it was a completely different lifestyle down here.
Absolutely.
We don't even really know what COVID was, to be honest.
No.
I mean, we lived in the Panhandle of Florida throughout the entire COVID.
Our
so
experience was vastly
we
different.
have no idea what the lifestyle of COVID
I agree
in
with
some
that.
of these other places was.
It felt as the world was burning down. We're over here enjoying our freedom.
We
and-
were having record years.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was still in the restaurant industry bartending, and we were crushing it.
Okay.
The restaurant was doing records. We were making money. Even when we shut down and went to only 25% occupancy and carry out only, we were crushing it on carry out. I was making a killing amount of money to bag people's food and take it out to them to their car. It was crazy.
People were in a mode back then where, and we're so far from that now, but things had gotten so isolated and so inconvenient, and also money was being given out too. But people were willing to pay and do anything for convenience and a little like slice of regularity. And it made places that were open like here, like really, really, really busy. It's kind of interesting.
I mean, would you say, rental business, what are rates from 2022 to now? What's the down percentage of that?
Yeah, so
You
depending
know,
on which
I mean,
figures you look at,
yeah.
and the cool thing about statistics is you can make them say anything
Whatever you want,
right?
right?
Yeah.
Though we try not to, but yeah, I mean, I've seen anything from like 15 to 30% down, but it really depends on. I mean, we have some houses that exceeded the market, some are maintain the market, etc.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's definitely down. But what was interesting post COVID the first year or two is people were coming with a lot of stress.
yeah.
And so this is what the dynamic would happen is in our houses, we have 5+ bedroom. So you'd have 3 or 4 families might come together for a 7-bedroom house.
Yeah.
And you may have someone coming in who's a little bit stressed financially. And there might be some stress happening, family dynamics. They'll take it out in the house.
Really?
And they'll private manage. Like we would get a complaint at like 8:30, 9:30 at night. It's like, hey, there's no closet on the first floor. We're kind of unhappy about this. And I told my team, look, there is something stressful going on in that house. because why would someone complain about no closet on the first floor when there's no bedroom on the first floor? Or there'd be times I would get the first day of check-in a list of like 12 items wrong, and one of those is the garage is too small. And again, 99% of the guests have a great time. It's that 1%.
It's like the people are more high strung.
There's that, and then there's some people, I think they just get their joy in life finding things wrong.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree. I believe that too.
We're not perfect. Things happen, but sometimes it's like, I'm wondering, and when I talk to them, it's like, hey, figuring out what else is going on.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like employees too. Like a lot of times when we were running the restaurant, even we would say all the time, like, this person's not doing this, or this, or acting like this, or this at work. But most of the time it came down to asking like, hey, are you all right? A lot of times it wasn't something about work. It was translating into that.
It's like the lady with the blind at your house last week.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah.
I mean, just as simple as the front door didn't have a blind on it.
Yeah. I have a short-term rental, and our front door is like glass, which is pretty typical, but it doesn't have like a pull down, but it doesn't really look into any part of the house. But I got a 4-star review because of it. Everything was great in the review, but just because I don't have something that I've been renting it for 3 years, no one's ever said anything about it. But it was just that glass door was apparently a huge deal.
If they told you the first day, you could have got something in maybe. Or something.
Yeah. It was interesting. I was like, it's the most random stuff sometimes. But to your point, I didn't think about it like that. But it probably was something else than that. Probably was something else going on there, creating that situation.
And it's training the team and all of us to realize, just to figure out, is this a guest who's having a rough time? Or is this a bully / narcissist?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's kind of a range, right? Because there's it's a legit issue that we want to take care of. Others, they just want to find something wrong so they can set it up to ask for a refund later on.
I was going to say, some people book an Airbnb with or a hotel or whatever. They book these things knowing that they're going to go in and find some reason to push back on the backside.
100%. Yeah.
That's just that person. That's just how they operate.
And that's where strategy, it's like the deal with a bully is, in a sense, there's the punch in the face type thing, and then you back off and do customer service.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't do that with just a regular guest who's having some issues. You just have to have some discernment. Because, I've been reading a great book called Slay the Bully, about narcissists and bullies. And, like, in a general relationship, like real estate deal, if I do something kind or kind of give up front, it builds some credibility, and then later on in it can help smooth things through. Someone who's a bully or narcissist, they see it as a sign of weakness.
Correct.
And it actually sets you up
for later
in a bad way. Mm-hmm. So
we just recently experienced that on a house that we flipped and we're selling. And I think Andrew accurately pinpointed on the other end of the transaction that's what was taking place. But sometimes that's hard for me to identify. It's interesting you say that, because we do try to be so like reasonable, equitable, and upfront. Where sometimes, and especially in real estate deals, especially when we're reselling some of our investments and things like that, people either take that as, hey, I like working with these guys, and they reciprocate and they manage their clients as such, or it's very quick that they turn around and try to take big advantage. Now, we don't let them do that, right?
Right.
But you learn something very quickly from that initial interaction. And it's interesting. Yeah, it's very true.
It takes some street smarts too. Mm-hmm. And I think a good strategy with all that is, it's when, let's say you have a client who's like starting to threaten lawsuit, or they say, look, I need a bunch of money back, or, we're going to leave bad reviews, which is extortion. You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
you can't say, hey, I'm going to leave a bad review if you don't give me X amount of money. Yeah.
And I think a good strategy, which strategies you have to adapt all the time, but it's like, if you want to go down the lawsuit route, if you want to start talking that way, then I just have to shut down the conversation, turn over to the attorney. Mm-hmm. Or if you want, I want to make this a good stay. We can do some customer service here. We'll figure things out. Which way do you want to go?
Yeah.
And
if you do it calmly, that shuts people down too.
Yeah, you just listen and all that.
I agree with that.
But yeah, it's just, unfortunately, there's people out there in the world who want to take advantage. But then you have people just having bad days too.
So what would you say you like the most about working in vacation rentals, and what is maybe the thing you were most surprised about that industry when you first got into it?
So I enjoy creating strategy. I enjoy creating SOP systems, standard operating procedures. I enjoy setting up the people to help get the things done, and then thinking the high level strategy. Thankfully, I have a cool team that takes care of the day to day, talking to the guests, the inspections, that kind of stuff. I still poke my nose in there kind of so I see what's going on, but it's more the higher level. I enjoy that. I love meeting new people, networking, which is why I'll often work at coffee shops, which now our company has Causeway Coffee, but just because I'll start random conversations. You never know what's going to lead to. So I enjoy using my superpowers of connecting, strategy, building relationships, delivering value. I think maybe one of the, I shouldn't say surprises, but coming from a background of finances are tight, you have to do it yourself, to realizing, hey, this is broken, just better to make the phone call and get someone else out there to do that, like ACs, whatever. I could spend personally 2 hours troubleshooting AC. Now you got a 5-minute checklist you run through, and then you make the phone call.
Yeah.
Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? No. Hey, guys.
Exactly. And I think just as you deal with everyone from, hey, a family from Iowa who's just barely pulling money together to come enjoy a luxury vacation home, to someone where they don't care about price, just seeing the different dynamics.
That's interesting. Do you really see that vast of a customer base?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I mean, you saw the house, Seawalk Sanctuary, that's for sale for $19 million. That one, I mean, someone who's going to be paying $4,000 a night, $5,000 a night as that thing grows rental value, versus someone who's coming in and paying $800 a night for a smaller house. You're going to have some differences.
Yeah.
Sure.
And across the board, I'll see cool people at the high price points. I'll see some people who are
not so cool.
Yeah. And that's all across the board.
Yeah.
It was funny. One time we brought on, it was a new house, and we're getting this thing ready. We can't afford to wait a week and a half for the landscaper to come. So I'm out there, and Chris, the owner of Destin Dreamers, we're doing landscaping. So Chris goes, cleans himself up, meets a high-dollar client. And the high-dollar client, he actually brings them by to show them the house to see if they want to buy, a house like that. And Chris just introduces me, doesn't say who I am. And you can see they're just not giving me the time of day. They just think, oh, here's this guy who's
the landscaper.
And I'm just thinking, you guys do not know that if we manage one of your homes, I'm the one that's going to be the reason for it being successful and taking care of completely. And they're like totally blowing me off.
Yeah.
I just thought
it's true. And you think about how many times, even like on job sites and things like that, sometimes the person who's in charge, you don't even know,
is the last one you choose.
Yeah.
That's I think the tendency in today's society to just make a judgment, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that in today's world, I don't really care who you are or what you can tell me. You make a judgment before you get into whatever situation.
Yeah.
You make a preconceived judgment of what you expect things to do or how it's going to unfold, whether you want to admit it or not. And that's just how our brain clicks nowadays, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And good and bad. Analyze the situation for what it is and be ready for what could happen, but also just go for it. And if it does happen, then figure it out. So I don't know. It's like a good, bad situation, in my opinion.
Well, yeah. And I used to teach public speaking at the community college, and now I do coaching on that. But like I tell the students, I want you to dress up for your speeches. And like it or hate it, people treat you differently based on how you dress.
100%.
I mean, just go to Walmart dressed in a suit.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a whole old adage: dress for how you want people to
Dress for the
treat
job
you.
you want, not the job you have.
Yeah, and dress for how you want to feel too. If you want to feel confident, like even on my days off, which my wife would say are extremely rare.
Yeah.
I'm fully dressed, ready to meet the public.
If I need to, or whatever, just because that's what makes me
Because
feel.
you're more productive too.
Yeah.
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 No, yeah. And people are visual more than they are context clues or substance. That's the truth.
Yeah.
So,
but it's how you carry yourself too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have, again, back to the job site, you can just observe, and the person who's in charge is going to carry themselves in a different way.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
can pinpoint that probably just by stepping back and looking for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
So what would you say, like, in the successes that you've had running Destin Dreamers, you and Chris, what would you think the ingredient or the thing that you do there differently is? Not even with the business, maybe it's with staff or whatever, but what's that thing that you guys do consistently that you feel really passionate about that you think helps you guys be successful?
Well, a key ingredient to any organization is figuring out the strengths, or I like to call it the superpowers, of the people that work for you, and then making sure they have the time to do that. And Chris is excellent at sales. He's a good visionary. He understands I'm great at networking. I'm great at strategy. And then we have people also work for us, David and others, who are great at executing. And Chris realized you put the key people in place and let them flourish that way. And then Jamie, Chris's wife, does a lot of stuff behind the scenes too. And I think to kind of answer your question is, we seek to be a kingdom-based company where we treat people right and we deliver a great product. And man, like any business, when sometimes you don't always deliver like you should, so you adapt and you correct. And Chris's superpower, he relates well with the wealthy, and he also is able to see real estate deals. And as our accountant has said, when the world finds out your superpower, they will be backing up the door with cash because they want your counsel on how to invest. And we see that happening
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
More so.
Well, and I think there's a lack of, I don't want to say a lack of, it's rare to find, I'll just say it, in the real estate industry, really genuine, deeply rooted knowledge in like the building, the financing of it, the pro formas necessary, what the long term looks like, mixed with like a genuine person and a time to like combine those two things and be really truly professional about it is not common. And I don't even mean that in a bad way. It's just a lot of us and a lot of people in real estate are okay making a certain amount or transactional in nature. So I think if you have someone like that, and people will recognize that, that's a snowball effect that'll probably take place to some degree, because there's not a lot of that out there.
Yeah, I like what you said, that, where you have the synergy. Since Chris, used to build homes too, it's like, all right, is this a quality build?
Yeah.
Is this, and then we
always
know the tax
talk about
strategies, all that.
Exactly. It's like the whole thing, the finance portion of it, the construction portion of it, like what we always talk about here too, and what we try to provide to all of our clients. Like my dad was a CFO for the company that him and my grandfather owned, and then they do private equity, and he does a lot of financial modeling and things like that. And he knows everything there is about 1031 exchanges and tax codes and all these things. So we are able to pull that in and help if I don't know it from him, I have someone on speed dial that we can call and give really sound advice to clients of all different price points of money, which is a really valuable tool to us. And it's valuable that I have access to the information. Andrew and his dad know a ton about construction that I don't know about. I know more now, but it goes from everything like understanding the product you actually sell, which I think is rare in real estate. We were just talking about this last 2 days with various different people, like actually understanding from ground up the product that you sell and all the different little pieces of it, which is not, it's a sales job typically. So not a lot of time goes into that. But we are selling a product. You should understand it. Then on the background of it, all that nitty gritty about what is, if you're going to, real estate is an investment, whether you're buying it with your family or not. That's the way I look at it. It's a home too, but knowing those tax advantages and those financial advantages, kind of borderlining between financial advisor and understanding the product you sell. And then the sales is like almost like the gravy in between. Like, you have to be able to sell it, obviously, but you really need those other pieces of information to really be a professional real estate advisor.
And I think that's the best way to put it to real estate advisor, because obviously we can't give tax advice or legal advice, but just realizing we know the strategies, we'll put you in contact with the right people.
Person. That's it.
And giving people ideas. It's like, that 41C walk, just there's some amazing tax strategies with a $19 million house. So knowing that, so we can educate other agents about those.
Yeah, knowing the nitty gritty of each individual property and what it could be used for sometimes is the difference between being able to sell it or not. And we learned that through wholesaling, I think, too, is like really identifying like what this product could be and what it would take to get there, and being able to put that on paper and give it to someone and have that come true. Then people start buying wholesale properties from you because they're like, these guys can not only can they find deals, but they know what you can do with it.
Yeah.
And that has a lot more value than just a transaction.
Absolutely. And that's, we all want to be relational.
Yeah.
It's back to build relationships, deliver value.
Yeah. If one thing I've learned in real estate, especially with people who buy investment properties, if you can help people make money, they will come back and make you money. That is 100% valid. 100%. If you can, and that's when it comes to helping people solve problems. If you can help other people make money through real estate, you'll have a good client base, especially when it comes to investment stuff. Yeah.
I mean, whether it's that person or the next person they talk to about it. I mean, if they're confident in your ability to explain things like tax strategies and how to cash flow at the best.
It's a referral business.
What short-term rental processes are the actual important ones that you should follow and don't do differently? Or, I mean, that's value that how much of the common agents, I mean, what's it, 3,000 agents in e-car and 2,500 agents in CPAR, but the 5,000 agents in the Panhandle, how many can actually have that conversation?
It's the keep it simple stuff that creates referral business, not the cool pamphlet or the super fancy business card or the sizzle reel video or the truth. None of that stuff is why people refer. It's fun to do and I like it and I'm going to keep doing it. But the truth of the matter is it's the like, I was easy to talk to and was really easy to communicate with. I was proactive with communication. That's the stuff that gets you referrals. 100%. And
someone told me years ago when I got into real estate and they said, Arlen, if you know the contract and you return phone calls, you'll be in the top 10%.
No, that's true. That's true.
That was a joke when he said it too. Didn't
yeah. And then,
no, yeah, it's true. And, just knowing like the actual basics of the contract is yes, a rarity. Yes.
Yeah. And I think I would add in another piece to that is in the real estate, there's a lot of egos.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And sometimes that really shows up when dealing with another agent.
Yeah.
And knowing how to work that where unfortunately it's, they have an ego and we're going to work around that and they're going to feel good about it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to get what my client wants.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sometimes you got to learn how to work with the ego.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I dare say sometimes you feed the ego.
Yeah.
Because we're here to represent our client.
Absolutely.
We have, since we actively had a conversation about 1.5 years ago about how one of our areas of improvement was because we have to flex between doing our own deals.
Yeah.
And doing deals for clients.
Yeah.
And when we do our own deals, you kind of can allow yourself to be principled if you want to. That's a personal choice. Now, maybe you have to wager what is that good for the business or not, right? But you have the right to do it. And you don't necessarily have the right to do that if that's not what your client wants, right? So you really have to take the emotion out of when egos are at play in those situations and just say, well, if that's what the client wants, we can give our advice, but that's okay. Yeah. And just be okay with it. And we've learned it now. Now we've learned to do that. We're very pragmatic about it. Mm-hmm. And we do a lot more real estate that way. And people get what they want a lot faster that way. But you have to learn that too.
And I think with that is, sometimes the other agent's flat out wrong.
Yeah.
Knowing how to bring that up in a way that they save face because we're here to get the deal done.
Yeah.
It's not
pointing fingers.
Yeah. Okay. You did 75 million last year. I've done way less than that. Clearly, I'm right, you're wrong, but I'm going to just finesse that through it, let them save face.
Yeah.
And it can be as simple as like, hey, you may have missed this with all the emails you get, but could you look into this? There's ways to do that.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap up. I got one question for you that we ask everybody. And that question is whether it's like personal or professional. We kind of call it our legacy question. What is that one thing that you would just want to leave with people at this stage in your life? That's the best piece of advice you can offer that you would want to leave behind.
Comes down to build relationships and deliver value. So to build relationships, you need to treat people right. You have to put time into it. You have to care for people. Delivering value is understanding what people's needs are and actually delivering that to that.
Yeah.
And in the process of that, I believe there's a God, and we should be honoring him through how we do all that.
Yeah, I agree.
And that old song we probably sang growing up, trust and obey. And build relationships, deliver value. And that's the long game.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of other things stem from doing that correctly if you can hone in on that. And that's the base of it, I think, and just being human to a degree too.
Yeah, and I think, and to go a little bit further than that, is build long-term relationships. Because I was told this quote hack years ago, and it works well. Like if you go to Publix and the person who is paying, checking you out there with the groceries, if your mentality is, I'm going to have a 20-year relationship with this person, you will treat them different. If your mentality is, oh, I'll probably never see them again. But just as it's a long-term relationship. So look, I'm looking at a 20-year relationship with you guys here.
Yeah.
And when you have that mentality, suddenly it changes
Every interaction.
everything.
Yeah,
Same with real
that's
estate.
interesting.
It's not just this one real estate dealer. There's going to be many more.
Yeah.
And that also helps just in business and anything is there's a long-term game or long-term war, per se. I may, quote, lose the argument today intentionally because I may still address this issue, but maybe 3 days down the road.
Yeah.
I'm okay losing the battle today because I'm out to win the war, and winning the war in the sense is long-term relationship, long-term value.
Makes sense. I 100% agree. Well, Arlen, I really, really appreciate you braving that traffic on Back Beach Road today to be here because it's season and I know how many people are out there. Thanks so much for taking the time and joining us. It was awesome having you on.
Been a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Arlen.
Thanks, guys.